All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Remarkable Edge live series show. I am your host, Dr. Vernita Glenn-White. I go by Dr. V, Brilliant Solutionist, and I am excited for you to be here today. We are talking about the myth of peak performance. And I'll admit, I had to change a few things because I was like, I want to be known for peak performance. But then after I started doing like more research and really honing down on like my expertise is not all about peak performance. It is about sustainable success. So I know that many of us have been living this lie that peak performance is where it's at, but that is not true. So we are going to dispel that myth today. Thank you so much for joining me. And we go live every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And be sure to check the featured section if you're watching on LinkedIn to subscribe to the show. So while the show is out here publicly, you get some behind the scenes access and deeper insights once you subscribe to the show. And then you get a complimentary gift as well. And that information is in the description as well as the featured section in LinkedIn. And so the idea of peak performance is that you should always be operating at your highest level, constantly pushing and always on. But that is not true. And I used to believe that. And I think a lot of women have lived like that. A lot of men have lived like that, but a lot of women in particular, like you always have to be on, always have to be on your game. And if you look like me, like this show is not only if you look like me, but if you do, you can resonate a little bit closer to like you always have to be on your A+++ game, right? Let me know if that's resonating with you down in the chat. But it can be a lot. If you've been at a certain level in your career, in your business, in your community, a certain status, certain titles, you know what I'm talking about always being on at your peak performance. And since we believe that myth, it is a very dangerous myth. And you want to know why? Because it leads to some things, and we're going to talk about that further down in the episode. And so, how many leaders or insert title, position, or status do you know who have started strong and then they only burn out? I know I've done that, and I'm pretty sure you've been there. And if you haven't burned out, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but you're more likely about to if you keep operating in this myth. So, what about companies? How many companies do you know that lose their top talent, or companies, organizations, but they lose their top talent because their high performers are running on empty? You know, the go to people, and you have probably been that person that's either keeping the company going or you're the one in your own company or business that's going because you're always operating at that high level and you are most likely running on fumes. You're running on empty, but we don't want that to be the case. So today we are calling out all peak performance. And I keep laughing because I know it's a trending topic. I know it's a hot topic like, yes, max results, peak performance, but I just want you to look at the other side of peak performance because it's not just about going harder, going faster, or going longer. The leaders or executives or the top people at the game who actually win consistently. That's the key word because a lot of us who've been in that myth and been driving and grinding, we do win. We do get results. We've had success, but it needs to be consistent. And that's the key. It's not this up and down, like I was here, then I crashed. I go up and I crash. We don't want that. So the people who are at that level and they have that consistent, sustainable success, they are going by a different set of rules. And we are going to dive into those rules. So stick with me today. So if you're watching live, go ahead and drop the fire emoji because I love emojis. I speak emoji. So go ahead and drop that if you're watching live. And if you're watching on the replay, comment hashtag replay and then peak performance. So I'll know like which episode that you are resonating more with, or you can do the myth of peak performance. All right, so if you are interested and you've been living in that space and you've been on 100%, I'm going to give you something to just ease your mind and let you know that you can still get the results without burning out and operating in that myth of peak performance. So stay to the end to hear about something that I'm coming up with. It's a live intensive for elite performers who are tired of the status quo. So notice I said elite performers, not just people who are in peak performance. So when you hear about it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So let me know if you can resonate with this high executive who crashed. So her name was Lisa, and she was an executive at a Fortune 500 company, and she did everything right. And let me know if this is you. She arrived early, she stayed late, she pushed her team, and she always operated at peak performance at the highest level until she hit a wall. How many of you are going in, going hard, hitting all the buttons, full speed ahead, and then all of a sudden it's just stop, or you just crash out, you don't want to do it anymore, and you're looking for a way out, or you're taking it out after you're taking it out on other people after you leave the job. And so with Lisa, her health declined, her decision making suffered, and I know I have been there. Decision fatigue is a real thing, and the company was forced to sideline her. So it's like, well, after you stop working at that high level, a lot of these companies don't see the need for you because they can always get someone else. I know it's like, well, they shouldn't do that, but it's a business. But if you are the top person who's in charge of that, this is for you too, so you can understand how to retain your top talent, and for yourself, how you can stay the top talent person, so you're not so easily dismissed when all of those things start happening, because we're going to make sure that they're not happening. So she was running on fumes. And when you do that, you cannot perform. Just like a car, it can go a little bit past empty, but at some point, if the fumes run out, you're going to be on empty and it's going to stall and you can't move until you refuel. So why, if you're not going to let your car go all the way to empty, why would you let your body, yourself, your mental state go all the way to empty for you to crash and burn, take this long way to recharge in order for you to get back on top? There's a way to maintain that and sustain that. Now, there are certain type of leaders. We can take Richard Branson or Sarah Blakely, or you can insert any other type of who do you think has been successful. Now, we don't want to idolize their success because everyone has their own pathway, their own trials and tribulations. But there's something to people who are at an elite level, and it's like they're not any different than I am, but they're doing different things than you and I are doing, right? So we can take a lesson from them. So they don't just perform, they sustain. And so I used to think like, yeah, I'm a high performer, I'm a top performer, and things like that. But it's like when you're performing, you feel like you always have to be on, and then so when you're off stage you just kind of stop. Now when I talk about elite performance, when I think about athletes who are elite performers, even though they're not always on, they're still maintaining that status, a lot of things that do behind the scenes. So think about it that way. So some of the people that I've just mentioned, they don't just perform, they sustain even when we don't see them, right? So a lot of us do that. I know people say you should be one way all day, and your character, but there's a time when you're on camera and doing your thing, and then you can still be that same person without feeling the need. So let me know if you need more clarification, but I hope that's landing for you. So stay with me. So the people that I talked about who are operating at the lead performer, whether you use my examples or you insert someone else, they know when to push and then they know when to pause. And they've structured their success in a way that keeps them winning long term. That's the thing. A lot of us have been super successful in either our careers, our businesses, and our families, in our communities. Insert where you've had your greatest success. But then we want to make sure that we're doing that across multiple areas of our lives and that we are sustaining that. We don't want this roller coaster of I was successful, then I crashed, and I was successful, then I crashed. I do believe all of us experience valleys, but who's to say that our valleys need to be like deep down in the gutter? They don't have to be. So this is just a new way of thinking, or a way to shift to make sure you're always on your edge of your greatness. So let's break down some of their secrets and let me know if they're resonating with you. So the idea of peak performance is a short-term strategy. And I know it's kind of like, there's not, I don't want to believe that. But think about it. It's always being productive. It's always hitting your limits. It's always like pushing to the max. I do believe that it is important at times. I operated at peak performance in various areas of my life, especially my career. You have to, or you wouldn't have been at the high level that you've been. So I'm not saying do not operate, or do not use any peak performance strategies. That's not what I'm saying. But for a lot of us, we have to shift our thinking or shift our relationship with peak performance and think about sustainable success, because that is the real goal. And the reason why you want to shift that way of thinking is because whatever you decide to do, whatever goal that you want to accomplish, whatever your dream is, whatever your next level is in whatever area of your life, you need to be able to transfer those skills. So sometimes you're not going to be able to push like you did in your career when you're talking about building a strong family unit, right? So if you think about, well, how can I have sustainable success in my career? Then I can transfer those skills and place that into how do I have sustainable success in my family, in my health, in my other relationships, my business, my all those things like that, community efforts, insert your whatever. So top leaders don't just chase performance, they chase performance cycles. So they don't just chase performance always on, it's the cycle of doing that. So think about athletes. They do not train at 100% every single day. Now, they may do things every day to stay at their optimal level, but they're not going hard. There are times when, like you shoot the basketball and, just get your shots in, you're practicing your form, but you're not, if you understand basketball, you're not just dribbling really hard and slam dunking and throwing out your shoulder, because if you're doing that when it's time to really perform on game day, you're not going to be any good. So think about how you are operating like you are an athlete. You are an elite performer, and think of yourself in terms of an athlete. So you don't have to play sports, because I was an athlete and I was an academic athlete, and that was a lot of mental workout in my mind. So I'm pretty sure some of you can relate to that as well. So like we said with athletes, they don't train 100% every single day, but because they do have off seasons, they do have recovery periods, and they do have strategic intensity. That's the key, strategic intensity. There are times when you do press the gas going full throttle, but you cannot stay that way, or you should not stay that way throughout the entire journey. So when we look at athletes like that, and we're like, well, of course it makes sense for them to have recovery time and, off seasons and things like that, then why aren't we doing that as leaders of our companies, leaders of our businesses, leaders of our lives? And if you're new, I just want you to understand, when I use the word leader or CEO, this is not just the title of someone who's running a company or an entrepreneur who has their own business. You yourself, if you are a career professional, you are a leader as well. You are a CEO. And I like to say, be the CEO of YOU, the Chief Expansion Officer of your own universe. You are your command center. So with your family, your friends, your career path, your outside interests, your hobbies, your community work, all of that, you have to lead all of that, because you are a business within yourself. So that keep that lens as we're going forward. So there are 3 practical strategies to win without burning out. And I know, like, you hear burnout a lot, and that's the thing, especially among women leaders, but a lot of people experience burnout, but particularly women, because it's so much on our shoulders. But we can do everything we need to do and what we want to do without burning out. So let's not just use burnout, I don't want to say not like an excuse, but let's not just be like, oh my gosh, I'm burnt out, because real burnout is a real thing. That's where you just can't absolutely do nothing. Take time to really get some real help if you need to, and then come back and use strategies. But don't just I'll leave that where it is, because I have this thing where people just use words, and you're not there yet, because I don't want you to say, oh, I'm not going to push too hard because I don't want to burn out, because that can be a form of laziness. Now, I'm not calling you lazy, like, you self-assess, but let's not use words to give ourselves an out, because like I said, there are times when you do push, but don't say, oh, I don't want to do too much because I don't want to burn out. For those of you who've experienced true burnout, let the people know how it feels in the comments, right? All right. So what are some strategies? Now, these strategies, like I say all the time, think about these things in terms of, okay, I don't know why I thought my mic went mute. All right, think of what you want to accomplish. So every time I give a suggestion or a strategy, you have to filter it through the lens of what you are working towards and what you want to accomplish. What I've noticed when I work with clients is that they grab everything and it's like, well, I'm going to do this. Oh, the thing didn't work. Well, the thing probably worked, but it didn't work according to your recipe, or you weren't in alignment to, or it wasn't in alignment to what you are trying to accomplish in that moment. So what I'm about to tell you, these strategies do work, but you have to see if it works for what you are working on right now. Okay, so stay with me. So, one suggestion or tip would be to use the 90-30 rule, where you work in 90-minute focus bursts and then you take a 30-minute break to recharge. Now, there are scientific studies and things like that when you work and then you take a break so that you don't go into exhaustion. Now, don't say, well, Dr. V, I can't do 90 minutes straight on something. It may take me longer, it may take me shorter time to do something. Be flexible. You know yourself, right? But don't try it and then you find out where your points are, right? You find out your ratio. All it's saying is take a focused chunk of time to knock something out, do a task, do an activity, a high impact activity, and then stop. I used to go full speed ahead. I was like, I'm not stopping until I get the whole thing done. And then I would find myself not doing anything for 2 days straight because I had put so much mental energy on completing like the whole project, right? And it wasn't even due for something. So that's why I said you have to know what works for you. But could I have chunked and we talk about chunking a lot in the education space. So it's like transfer those skills, girl. So, but if I looked at a whole thing and I said, well, let me just work on this. Maybe it's sales copy, maybe it's getting my notes organized to write my book, or maybe it's organizing, a client list or insert your whatever. Let me just work on that, then take a break. I may not need 30 minutes because I know me, if I take 30 minutes, it's going to turn into like 3 hours. So I may take 10, 15 minutes and then to say, okay, now I can chunk and do the next thing so I don't feel so overwhelmed. So you know yourself, right? So just try that and let me know how that works for you. Number two, you can try strategic off season. So a lot of CEOs or high level executives build in personal off seasons. I know a few entrepreneurs who do they take like the last week off of every month, where they don't do anything. Everything is focused on family, themselves, and things like that. And then they work for 3 weeks, and then towards the end of the year, they may take all of December off, or they may take all of January off. When I was a college professor, it was kind of built in that way. Well, even when I worked as in the K-12 system, but mainly for my last few years, as a career professional, it was built in where I had a lot of breaks, winter break, fall break, summertime, spring break. So those were built in for us. Now, if you're working full on, if you don't have that, then you have to build that and you have to find a way because, again, you are the CEO of your life. So if you have to work, every day, 12 days a week. I don't know. You get vacation time, right? But then you have to be strategic, or be strategic with your weekends where you are taking that time and doing things like that. There's always a workaround, but you have to lead yourself and you have to create that structure and those boundaries for yourself. And if you need some support with that, you can comment down below. Peak performance myth. All right, and number three, energy audits over time management. I worked hard not to use the word time management. I'm conscious about that. I like to use time optimization, but now I do like this energy audit. What sucks out your energy, right? What's a time suck? What's an energy suck? So instead of looking at time and managing your time, manage your energy. Track what drains you and track what fuels you, and optimize your work and your team interactions, or when I say team, it could be in your organization or it could be in your life. So you have a team always. So team isn't just in your professional side or your business side. Okay, so keep that in mind. And so what fuels you? Now, don't say, well, I don't like creating systems, or I don't like checking emails because that drains me. If you are, it may fall on you, but then that's where you go back and look at, well, how you can implement the 90-30 rule or something similar. well, I'm only going to do this chunk first here instead of trying to sit there and answer 100 emails because I need to do this other part of, my life or my business or my career, as well. So don't use it as an excuse not to do the things, but you do have to understand. And then so it's like, well, if I don't like checking emails, or if I don't like writing this, or if I don't like organizing this, or if I don't like doing that, and it just drains me, when in my day, if I'm the one that has to do it, when in my day will it be more beneficial for me to do it? The beginning or the end, right? You have to know that and lead yourself in that. But then if you don't have to do that, please delegate. Please let someone else help you. If you don't have a person, let technology help you in the way that it can. I think a lot of us are taking on things and feeling busy when we don't have to. So in this day and age, even if you don't have the resources to outsource right now, there are strategic ways on around that to make sure that things are operating uh, at optimal speed or optimal time where it's not draining your energy. So to make a list, that's an action step. Make a list, find out if you can delegate, find out if you can shift it in your day, or find out if you can find a way to use technology to outsource it or resource it. So comment down below, which one are you going to try? Is it going to be number one, the 90-30 rule or something similar? Is it going to be number two, having strategic off seasons? Or is it going to be number three, the energy audit over time management? So what let me know these questions if this has been you, and I would love to hear your thoughts about this. Someone would have said, well, what if my company expects for me to always be on? I would ask you, is that true? you know, because I think now it could be for you, but for a lot of us, I wonder if is I think that's what they expect of me, so I'm just going to show up that way. And it's like nobody expected for you to do that. That's just something that you're carrying. So that's what you have to be honest with. Like, did someone actually come up to you and say you need to be doing this? From 9 to 5, 8 to 4, however long you are in the office. Let me know if that's true. If you have something like that, maybe that's not the environment, but hey, I'm not telling you to jump ship. Please don't do that, unless you have a plan. But honestly, do they? And if they do expect for you, and I'm a I'm a different breed. If if my if, I did have situations, even as a college professor, when they would ask for me to do certain things, and if it wasn't in the bylaws or in my guidelines or things like that, it was like, I'm not doing that. But I would come with, this is what I will do. As long as the task is completed, I may not do it in the way that you want me to do it, respectfully, but this is how I am going to do it. So I know that's a different environment, but sometimes you just need to speak up and know what is expected of you and then operate within those guidelines. I think a lot of times people just take things and they don't speak up, but that's another conversation about, being empowered and using your voice. So what about, you know, how do you convince the higher ups or the people that you're working with that downtime is strategic and is not being lazy? Now, since I focus on the top people who are the leaders, who are the decision makers, I talk to you because you are in charge of that. You set the tone, and then you have to understand that yourself, right? So you can't just go and tell your team or your employees, that they're being lazy or this, that, and the other. You have to first, I believe, you implement it in yourself because you teach, lead, and serve who you are at your core. You need to understand that. And when you take your strategic downtime, do you think that you are being lazy? You got to work on your outdated beliefs around that. And then so when you work on that, then your team will understand that, oh, well, they won't, my higher up or my leader won't see me as being lazy. And so if you are on the other side trying to convince a higher up, you have to show that with results. So when I take time off, or when I take a break, a mental break, or a step back, or I may not come to this meeting. However, I did produce this. So you also have to take charge because they respond to results. You got to know what your people will respond to. So you can't just say, oh, it's my mental health. And I'm not making light of that. But I know I've been in situations where people have used that as an excuse to not work, or then they don't produce the result. I'm okay with you taking your time, your break, but I also need you to, produce what you need to produce, right? So whether you work full and go hard in the mornings and get everything done, or you take some time and ease your way throughout the day, but if they're asking for a deliverable, a result, then you need to make sure you get it done. And then when you can operate like that, then you can present them with, hey, I'm able to do this because I needed this downtime, or I needed this, I needed to take a step back. So let's not just always be, it goes both ways. So if you're the leader, have to communicate, and if you are under the leader and going from the bottom to the top, that line, the up line, then you also have to communicate, and we might need to work on your communication strategies. All right. So another question is, what's the best way to start implementing performance cycles? I always start with an audit. You have to know what you are working with. It's like a needs assessment. You are here. So you start with an audit of all of your time, all of your tasks, and then looking at, give yourself a range of how you start, let's say if it's working a project, I like to think in terms of projects. If I'm working on a project from beginning to end, let's review the last project. How long did it take us to do that? What steps needed to be done? How are we feeling at or you yourself, how are you feeling at, the various moments, the various weeks, days, however long? And then you can say, okay, do we really need this much time, or do we need a longer time? Things like that. So you have to start with an audit. I would love to have a conversation with you, or you can just comment down below, and then you can DM me peak performance myth, and then let me know kind of what your question, so I can respond back to you, because I this is just a blanket statement, but like I said, everyone is, the general things work, but then the success or the secret sauce comes from learning, about your individual or your company's approach, and the dynamics and things like that. So if you got any additional questions, you can drop them in the chat, or you can DM me Peak Performance and then ask me your question. All right. So I want you to understand that I'm not downing peak performance. There is a time, but it's time for us to shift to sustainable success. And because it's not just for our careers, it's not just for our businesses, it's for our entire life. If you want to live a full, focused, meaningful, fulfilled life, then you have to understand how to have sustainable success in multiple areas, or across all of the areas, because you don't want to give your best in your career or your business, and then you are a trash person in your personal life or in your community, or you feel so drained that you can't do anything in your community, or engage in that hobby, or branch out and do something else. So that is why you can't just say, well, take this. That's why it's not good, in my opinion, and research backs me up, so that you can't just always go at 100 and build this way. You have to take your foot off a little bit and then operate in performance cycles. So we still love our performance. We still love working at a high level, but then we have to do it more strategically. So here's the deal. Now, if you're trying to play the long game with a short term strategy, you're setting yourself up to fail. Notice I said, if you want to do something short term, peak performance, and it's short term, great. But just know that it's not sustainable, and you will fail. And failing looks like burning out and being ineffective. So sustainable success beats peak performance every single time. I can review my own life and understand that. And I'm pretty sure if you were honest with yourself and took a step back, you can see the difference between, I haven't had an issue over in this particular area of my life, but I keep crashing and burning over here. Ask yourself why, and then you can take a self audit, or I would love to chat with you about, having that conversation and letting you see the high level picture, and we can do a comparison that way. So next week, we are diving even deeper into another lie that we've been sold and told about leadership and success. But before that, here's what I want you to do. I do want you to take an energy audit, track your peak times, times that you just kind of drain out, times that you just doze off or mindlessly start scrolling on social media. Track your times, and then that way you'll know, you'll start understanding how you operate, and you may even shock yourself. You may be like, oh my gosh, I waste so much time, or oh my gosh, I get a lot done during this time and I don't do anything during this time. And then you can start kind of self-coaching yourself and putting those things in place. So if you want any deeper insights, there are two things I would love for you to do. So for deeper insights, behind the scene content, or advanced strategies, I want you to subscribe to the show. Now you can watch it out there. It's out here on the platform. But if you want to go behind the scenes, you subscribe to the show and you go to Dr. Vernita Glenn, drvernitaglenn-white.com/remarkable edge, or check the featured section in LinkedIn or the description underneath this video. Now, what I told you at the beginning, if you are an elite performer and you're tired of the status quo, I do have something that I am working towards. It is up and I'm excited to share it with you. But to get early access and to just kind of get a sneak peek into what I want to share, go and visit drvernitaglenn-white.com/affluent leader. Just go there. And because I would love to hear your feedback and I would love to hear your thoughts about that, because I think the term affluent leader and my approach to that will shock you a little bit. So if you want to learn more about that, of what's coming up, it's going to drop on February 25th, 2025, right? So within a few weeks at the time of this video. So to get early access, to get some behind the scene things, go to drvernitaglenn-white.com/affluent leader. That will also be in the featured section and in the description box below. So thank you so much for listening and learning with me. Tag an elite leader who needs to hear this today. Tag them, go share it with them. And if you're serious about shifting the way you lead and perform, again, subscribe to the show, connect with me here on LinkedIn, and then send me a message or a comment, because I will reach back out, because I want to talk to you to make sure that we turn this monologue into a dialogue. And be sure to stay connected, because you don't want to miss what is next. Thank you so much. And remember to stay on your edge, because bold execution meets bold execution leads to brilliant breakthroughs. Thank you so much. And I will see you on the next episode. Bye.